can truth exist without an interpretation? I don't think so. At some level, maybe my whole thing is the least amount of interpretation is the best. We talk about perceptual truth, but I mean, what I would say no. I'll say the answer to that is no.
I mean, it all depends what we're talking about. And I think when I'm talking about truth, when I'm referring to truth, while it can encompass my perspective at times, it's no. Well, it always encompasses my expect. How can I put it nicely? It exists independent of my interpretation. So when I put my interpretation on it, I'm only telling you, hey, truth exists, and here's my take on it. I am never, the truth itself always existed regardless of my observation of it. I can only give you my take on the truth that has always existed. And so I'm like, it's always there, but like the reality is always there. And I refer to me personally, I refer to that reality as truth. And so people who don't think that, for them, they can say, I could see how other people could say, I don't consider facts or data or the out there that doesn't exist as truth. Truth could be defined as someone's perspective and saying, when I looked at the data and separated the real part from the fantasy part, the real part is the truth. And therefore truth is something that I did, or something that was an interpretation of the facts. And I'm like, okay, I can see how you could define it that way, because, and it's not wrong to say that. So I wouldn't condemn anybody for saying that. As long as they're clear, at least I'll know where they're coming from. But it's not where I'm coming from. I'm just like, truth existed and I discovered more of it now. Other people could say the world existed and I discovered more of the world. And now that I have discovered more of the world, the part of the world that was actually real versus the fantasy part I thought about the world, the real part was truth, or is truth now. I'm like, cool. Now, at least now we'll know what we are referring to when we use the words.
So let me try a thought experiment that just popped in my mind, because I would assume that you think it's true that people die, right? People die. Now, what if somebody would have said, well, people stop moving and their bodies turn to dust, or their bodies disintegrate, but I don't know that they die. They just stop moving. Is death an interpretation? Or, I mean, I'm trying to make a dumb example just to kind of like,
you're pointing out the interpretation portion, and that's great. But what that shows is that people can define things differently. And they're like, some people can say death is not as people stop moving. Some people can say death is when the spirit departs from the body. And I'm like, hey man, me from a clinical background, I'm like, death is when you can't do the things you need to do, and you're dilated, your heart is stopped, and you're not breathing. I'm like, you're dead. Like, what if you pass gas still, or you have this random jerk? What happens? I'm like, hey man, pupils are fixed. The heart's not moving. You dead. It's official. I'm calling it. It's happened.
Right.
It's like, well, that's your perspective. Like, it is. It is my perspective. But that is literally what I define as death.
Right.
And other people can define death differently. And I'm aware that we use words this way, but it's just the things we are observing are the same. Like, you could observe the same things I am observing. And if I didn't want to use the shortcut of the word death, I could describe the whole definition of the word each time I wanted to refer to this. And you could refer to your whole definition of your word, and then we would have clarity. But it just takes so long.
I mean, I think at the beginning of this right now, I can't say for certain, I think there's a line that can be drawn, because the difference in these two interpretations of this fake example that I give is a relationship to life. Because to me, the whole, that person laid down and they stopped moving, and then their skin is now disintegrating. Well, they died. To me, and I don't know, maybe I'm just over generalizing right now, but I'm thinking, like, for me, everything that I'm thinking is a relationship to life, to how, because it's like, yeah, people can lay down, but I don't have a life anymore. The life is gone. The thing that mattered, the source core thing that mattered at the end of the day for all decisions and things was gone.
Right.
So that's the connection that I'm making. So that's when people say, well, you ever been around somebody who says, and I have friends that they'll have somebody does something, like, I don't know, somebody comes down the street and is like shooting or something like that. And it's like, oh man, he just shot up the block. It's like, people can die And so therefore, this doesn't seem like a good thing. But to some people, it's just like, it's just the thing that happened.
It just happened.
And that's what I mean about the relation. I'm going to start trying, I'm not studying, but I'm going to just keep trying to think about this. Like when I'm having a disconnect with thought, because I do notice that when people don't tie their thoughts or their observations or their facts to life, it's like, well, that's the issue where I'm like, it's not true. It doesn't matter. It's not relevant to human life. It's not, that's what I mean about relevance. It's not relevant to a life. So when you start saying things, it's just like, yeah, you're coming up with facts that don't help me. They don't help me. They do anything.
Literally not relevant. Irrelevant now. Okay, I get it. These things exist. Okay.
Right. So I'm gonna keep my eye out for that, man, because I think that might be something to that. So the second part is just like breaking down observations and reason, and then just goes into, observations as raw truth. Define observations as the raw neutral data that we perceive through our senses or instruments. Which I don't know. Even so, I'll even give you an example of the example with the example. Like, how does it benefit me to be so meticulous about the difference between interpretation and perception, to the point that I think that there is no perception without interpretation? But how does that benefit me to get so minuscule, to get so deep into that part? Like, I would like to draw the line, and we need to draw a line in a place that matters. Because I don't want to be Kantian. I don't want to be like, oh man, we have eyes so we can't see. And it's just like, because it's not useful. Why? Because it's not useful. It's not useful to have this whole, oh man, we can't perceive because we put all the interpretations in our perceptions. No. Well, let's find a line and let's cut it there.
Let's have a little bit more. Let's have a more helpful criteria than just who could say. Well, you're saying right now you are speaking, so I recommend that we should say it too. Here, I'll try. But yeah, I definitely think it's helpful to make things, like you said, make things practical. Like, I wouldn't go and debate every single human being to discriminate between the observation versus the interpretation in all areas. I'm like, nope. Only when we get to a conclusion that's unhelpful. Like, all right, I saw something. I don't like that other people voted the way I didn't like, and therefore we have to kill them all. I'm like, all right, so now it's time to take a step back. We've officially crossed an ethical boundary where you are now starting to take away life. All right, now we have gone into the moral realm. It's time to analyze do some root cause analysis. Go back to the thoughts here, see where we broke, where we got off. Because whenever we're getting to a point where we're actively destroying life, or moving away from life, or moving toward death, then I'm like, okay, we have reached a level of moral concern that is worth investigating.
I mean, I agree. I mean, that's why I'm only really interested in ethical conversations when it comes to philosophy. Outside of that,
there we go.
It could be entertainment here and there, but I'm not that deep into it at all. Oh.